a Zoom meeting on YouTube. Full seeing it.
We're live. Streaming on YouTube.
Oh no, we are, guys. I think we are live.
Trying to see. I wouldn't even know how to tell.
Seeing it.
He did say it takes a few minutes. Oh, okay, yeah.
We are live.
Okay.
Oh no, we are, guys. I think we are live. So we've still got a couple of minutes, I think, before we do this.
Make sure your phones are on silent, ladies.
Yeah.
Or on do not disturb. Oh, I see us. Oh my god.
How do you see? Have to send me a link. How do you see us?
What, for YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay.
Make sure your phones are on silent. Oh my god. Is there any way you can cut that out? Right, we've got 1 minute. That's so cool though. You can see it.
Amal, do you want to know what I've got you saved under my phone?
No.
Amal up the road.
She's no longer there.
I love it.
She's no longer there. Right.
I think even though now you'll always be my Amal up the road.
No, yeah, I think that's fair. I appreciate that. I mean, I've got you saved as just Hepsa, but it is what it is, isn't it?
Okay, it's 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right, let me get my phone ready. My chapters that I'm wanting to talk about.
Dun, dun. Okay, you ready? Hi guys, welcome to the Lit Collective. Welcome to the Lit Collective Festival in partnership with the Arts and Humanities Knowledge Exchange. Sorry about that, guys. I had to read that. My name's Sahra Ahmed. I'm a local youth worker in Sheffield, so I work in Brumhall with the Brumhall Girls Youth Group, and I also work in Burngreave with the Ellesmere Youth Project. This is the Lit Collective Book Club. This is part 2 of the Gal-Dem We Will Not Be Erased book. So I'm just going to let the girls introduce themselves as well.
Okay, my name's Aisha. I'm an English teacher based in Sheffield. Keen reader, lover of all literature, especially non-fiction. So I'm quite excited to talk about this one.
I'm Amal Ali. I'm a senior lecturer in law at the University of Lincoln. I don't know how to think about that for a second. Currently on maternity leave, and my research areas are on identity, belonging, intersectionality, and yeah, also very interested in all things literature, and so on and so forth.
My name is Shadia. I'm a junior doctor in Sheffield, and I'm a big book nerd. Unlike Aisha, I am a lover of all things fiction.
Right, okay, so just to give you a background of this, so in our book club, the first book that we read was Gal-Dem, I Will Not Be Erased. What we've decided to do is have a part 2 of the book discussion, just so to give you guys an insight on how it is within our book clubs. This has got our older members involved in this. So yeah, none of our young girls are part of this. The book club is mainly girls of colour from the Burngreave and the Brumhall area. Just to let you know how this is going to go. So the talk's going to be about, we're going to be talking for about a good 45 minutes, 50 minutes, about our views on this particular book and what our thoughts are on it. If you guys do have any questions, just comment down below and then we will get to them at the end of the discussion. Just to also say, can you please click the subscribe button? I've always wanted to do that, so yeah, click the subscribe button. So we're just going to get right to it and just ask, what was your thoughts on the book? So should we go with Aisha first? Go on.
Okay. Personally, I really enjoyed the book. Fiction is just my area like of enjoyment when it comes to reading. So I really, really enjoyed it. There was some really relatable stories in there, some that really made me laugh as well. Like I had a good giggle at some points. And then some obviously not so funny and quite traumatic for them as young people. I was quite shocked to see that 14-year-olds, you know, didn't have the same experience as me as a 14. I was very carefree, but you know, maybe if I think back now, there are points where I could be like, yeah, you know what, I could write a letter to my younger self. But I really, really enjoyed it. It was a great read.
Yeah, I think I'm with Aisha on that. I don't know whether it is because I work with young people. So in that sense, having a whole book where people wrote back to themselves when they were younger, I thought was just a great mechanism and a great way for the girls that I work with to be like, you will go through experiences in life. So it's not too bad, and we are here. There are people out there that can help you, and every experience that you go through, you're not on your own, even if there's some of the experiences that they went through themselves aren't the same as their own experiences. Amal, what did you think?
I was not a fan of the book personally, and I think some of it is because I feel like it was very superficial. I feel like there were parts where they didn't really scratch under the surface. It didn't feel very critical, and I think there were some stories that were obviously missing. And I know we'll cover that maybe a little bit later on. What I did enjoy, I should have started with what I did. What I did enjoy was the actual diary entrances. You know, they had a diary entrance in certain chapters and their response to the diary entry. But I do feel that some chapters were definitely a lot stronger than others, and some of the themes felt a bit repetitive. But yeah, we'll get into that.
Shadia, what about you?
Yeah, so I'll start off. I really like the concept of the book. I like how they've got a like selection of people of color just reflecting, and I like the fact that they had the diary entries as well. That's quite a unique way of sort of addressing this issue. I'm probably with Amal on this, in that I think they probably didn't, a lot of the stories I felt sometimes that they didn't quite scratch the surface, and they probably could have got a bit deeper. But I wonder if that's just because of who the book is aimed at. Perhaps it's aimed more towards a younger audience rather than older adults. And then I was going to say something else. Yeah, so growing up, I read a lot, but I didn't have many books where there were people of colour at the forefront. So I really like that fact, and I wonder what my life would have been like had more books like this been available when I was a kid. But that being said, I mainly read fiction as a kid, so I don't even know if I would have picked it up. But just having them available and having it out there is, I think, a very great thing for young people of colour.
Yeah, I do. I think that's, I think if I was to read that book myself, and not, if I wasn't working with young people, I think I would have just been like, oh, okay, cool. But I think I've found it more relatable since I've worked with young people, and I feel like it's more accessible to them and aimed to them, especially because they are women of colour. It's people who look like them who are writing these stories in that sense. So I like that aspect of it. I think that's what drew me to liking the book in the first place. I don't know whether it's just my, like,
I think it was pretty cool for like young readers to read it. Like, as I say, like when you do work with young people, that book kind of gives you a bit more insight into some of the struggles. It's really easy like to forget that we all once upon a time teenagers ourselves. So like when you do work with the young people, it kind of, you think of like one person. I with every story that I read, I could think of one person that I've come across since teaching. That's this reminds me of that little girl. And I feel like this book could have been a really good, like, hey, read this, and it might help you with, you know, the advice that you don't seem to be taking from me. This book is telling you the same thing. This is someone that's sort of been through the same thing as you did, but I don't know whether, you know, they had to go through and make the mistakes that they made in order to become the people that they are. But yeah, I think for young people, it'd been a great book to read. Again, but when I was little, Shads, I'm like you, I was really into fiction, and then I think it just got ruined for me. So I started being like, I want to relate more to things that are more real. So that's why I really enjoyed this book. Quite reflective.
Yeah.
Maybe so it might just be me. It might be that I'm comparing this book to the adult version, which we covered, I think, at one point, The Good Immigrant. Have you read The Good Immigrant?
No, I haven't. I want to.
You need to read it. It's so good. I'll loan you my copy. And that I really enjoyed, because I feel like it just had a little bit more self-reflection than these had. I mean, I'm looking at the blurb and it said, the writers share their joyous, funny, and life-affirming stories about growing up. But not many of the stories were joyous or funny, which is completely understandable. Everyone has a traumatic past, especially being, you know, a young woman of color. You know, there are certain they're all women of color. There are certain traumatic experiences, but it just lacked that reflection, and it lacked the advice you give yourself. You know, in some of the chapters, these women were, you know, 30, writing back to their 15-year-old, and I was hoping to see a little bit more depth in the advice they'd give, as opposed to, you know, a paragraph or a couple of paragraphs. I would have liked a bit more reflection.
Yeah, I think also, especially in the chapter where the girl is hating being in her skin.
Yeah.
And she goes through, obviously, kind of like a mental breakdown where she's not getting out of bed or anything. I think I was like, but how did you record? Like, I think it was like a 1 sentence or 2 sentences of like, yeah, with support I got out, but it wasn't like,
how did you access
how she got past it. And I think that's more important than what her trauma was.
Because some of them were just a bit like, it's okay, and, you know, it's not that it provided like an insight to how they got over it. I agree, like it was just like a very short, and it's okay, you've been through it and look at you now. But what about that journey? Because the journey is the more interesting part, because I feel like that's the part that could be more inspirational, rather than, you know, you've been through it and look at where you are right now. Sometimes the journey is a really, really important part. So yeah, I agree with that.
And also recognizing the journey is not going to be easy and it won't happen overnight. You know, it's not, there's no quick fix to these things. It's something that you sort of like gradually overcome.
It felt, so that's why it felt incomplete. It lacked that journey. It lacked that, how did you get to where you got? And also, and this might be, it's not even, it might be a personal preference, I would like to know where those girls are now.
Well, some of them were anonymous, weren't they? So when you get to the end of the book, some of them didn't want their real names to be put out there. But yeah, no, I would love, as just a reader, I would love to know. I'm one of those people, like, you know, when you watch something, you're like, no, I need to know about this person. I was a bit like that with these stories. Like, I want to know where they ended up.
I don't know. I listened to the book rather than read the book. And at the end, they had like a chapter.
Yeah, I just remember.
They went through whatever he was doing. Yeah. And I loved listening to that, because I was just like, this is amazing. Just listening to all these like women who've achieved so much. I was just like, yay.
But would you think that if it had that element of this is the journey, that it could become like a self-help book?
Okay, I love self-help books. Yeah.
That's probably why you wanted the journey. Because I was just thinking now, like, surely if they included the journey, it would be a lot longer than what the book is. And then it would slowly become a self-help book that's and that's not really the intention of it.
Yeah, that's true.
So the next question what I want us to tackle is okay, so which of the stories did you relate to the most?
I've got loads.
I think I'm gonna go first. I think the best one for me was the pomegranate one. The pomegranate. I just call that chapter the pomegranate chapter, because having parents where they, having a father who could speak English but then had an accent, and as soon as I read that story, what came to mind for me was when my little brother asked my dad to take him to a birthday party, and then when they got there, my brother turned around and said to my dad, "Don't speak." And so my dad so when my dad came home, he was like, "Dad, can you believe he said to me, don't speak?" He goes, "Does he not know that I went to university here and I can speak good English?" And I was like, "So what did you do?" And then he goes, "I just nodded." He goes, "I can't believe my son said to me, don't speak." And he goes, "Why did he say that to me?" And I was like, "Because Dad, you do got a bit of an accent. Do you get what I mean?" And he was like, "No, I don't." And it was just that realization of the parents don't actually realize that they do have that bit of an accent. And when I was reading that, all I could think back was to that story, because how hurt my dad really was at the fact that my brother said, "Don't speak." So yeah, so that has to be my favorite story, just because it brought back good memories.
Even like as just an immigrant, it's that's a story that's really relatable.
Yeah.
I mean, it just reminded me of like all the things that my mum had mispronounced, that maybe my younger self really cringed at, but as I got older, it made me laugh, because there's like baby ham being the way that Somali women say Birmingham. And I realized that as growing up, I love saying baby ham. Yeah, I'm going to baby ham, even though it's not baby ham, it's Birmingham. So when you get older, you really appreciate the little nuances that, you know, the mums or the aunties use. But when you're little, you're a bit like, oh God, this is like I want the world to swallow me up. I don't ever want my mum to speak English around me. I love it.
Isn't there an auntie on Instagram as well who like people love precisely because she's like a do you know who I'm talking about?
Is it Uga Seda? The girl that takes like basically parodies of the things that like
no, not the parody, like an actual Somali auntie with a Somali accent in Canada who does like motivational speeches and that. And she's like year like auntie something.
I need to see this.
But yeah, no, I totally know what you mean.
I think for me, my favorite story, the one I found not relatable when I was younger, but like relatable now, is the one I've got it written here. So it says, "You speak well for a black girl."
Yeah.
That one I realized since becoming a teacher. God, that's so relatable. When I was younger, I didn't really get that, but being in a professional environment, it's like if I say anything that's deemed intelligent, it's like, wow, Aisha, that is so profound. And you're like, I don't get it. I literally said the same thing someone else said. And it's like, I don't know if people look at me and think that I shouldn't speak in this way, or I should be a bit hood or a bit ghetto. I don't know. There's something that people like, I don't know, it's like I don't know, is it a stigma? Is it a stereotype? But I really enjoyed that. And I was like, it's not that I relate to it as a young person. I related to that story right now. And it's something I'm trying to really navigate through, and like maybe challenging people now and saying, hang on, what do you mean by that? Why would you say that, as opposed to before? I'm like, oh, thank you, as if it was a compliment when it's not. It's actually an insult.
It is an insult. I totally get that. I think I think me now, I also relate to that, but it's not just speak well for a black girl. It's also, and I'm sure all of you get this, you don't look like you should be in your profession. Yeah. I've been mistaken for waitress, the cleaner. Like I know when colleagues say, "Oh, I'm always being mistaken for a student." Being mistaken for a student is a privilege I don't have, sadly. And you know, I love my job. I love what I do. I don't think I get that you speak well for a black girl. I think I get that you don't look like you belong here. And obviously it's not blatantly said to me, but
you feel it.
But I mean, if someone, I remember so I've been in my profession since 2012. And I remember the first set of students graduating in 2015, and a student tried to introduce me to her parent, Like, you know, this is Amal, she's my lecturer, she teaches me EU law or whatever. And parent was like, can you get me a cup of tea? And I was like, no, I'm not the waitress. At first I looked down, I thought, am I wearing something similar to the other waitresses? And then I was like, no, I'm not a waitress. You know, I teach your daughter. And then the Somali in me went, but I can get you a cup of tea if you want. Honestly, I don't know what was going on. It was literally like, but I can't grab you a cup of tea. Obviously, thank God she said no. Oh, imagine if I made her a cup of tea at graduation.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, but at the same time, yeah, I think we are not really well represented in academia. The story that I liked is the story about the cousin, and I really hope I pronounced her cousin's name right, Media E. Yeah,
I couldn't pronounce it. I was really struggling with that one.
That's how they pronounced it in the audiobook.
How did they pronounce it in the audiobook?
Medea, I think. Medea.
Medea. Yeah. Oh, okay, Medea. And I had a really close relationship with my cousins growing up. Like, we got each other. We got each other's experiences. We got each other's struggles. We got each other in ways where even our parents wouldn't really understand what we were going through, because obviously we've got a completely different experience living in the diaspora. And I grew up in the Netherlands. We moved to the UK when I was in year 7, and my cousins are therefore spread across, you know, just like all of us, spread across Europe. The war happened, people moved where they could, and we meet up maybe once or twice a year from the Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, and London. It doesn't matter, or it didn't matter, and it still doesn't matter, that we all had completely different experiences of growing up around whiteness and different types of whiteness. We were all very, very, very tight. And so I really like that story, where she felt she didn't really have anyone that had her back, but she had her cousin. Yeah, that was, I think, my favorite one.
Yeah, no, that's totally relatable. I think there's, like, people say, oh my God, like, you're from that area, and I'm like, yes, I am from Brumhall, and I love it, because I've experienced it growing up with that tightness, where it was like everyone had your back. It's like when I say to people, yeah, I can walk around at nighttime late in the area, and people will look at me and be like, oh my God, that's dangerous. And I'm like, no, it's not dangerous. I feel totally safe, because I know everyone in the area, and everyone in the area has got my back. So it's that sense of community. And I think what I really enjoyed is the fact that the girls could read that, and it's like, yeah, you've got your cousins, but also remember you are part of the community. Remember that the EYP is your family, and remember that Brumhall Girls Group is they're your cousins as well. So we've all got each other's back. So that story is a good one for me to relate back and be like, don't forget, even though we aren't blood related, but we are your family, and we will always have your back for you guys to achieve what you need to achieve.
Yeah, no, I think that was one of my favorite ones. I also like the pomegranate one.
It just makes me laugh every time I hear the word pomegranate now. It just reminds me of the way that girl's mum pronounced pomegranate.
I love it. I also love the bit where she was talking about putting oil in her hair and how that was a perfectly normal thing to do. And I totally related to that, because I remember growing up thinking, oh, I've got little oil in my hair, it's so weird. But like now it's like, yeah, I oil my hair and do it for my hair care, and it's fine. And I think we lived in a different time, in that there was no social media, there was none of this sort of like movement where there was people who looked like you who were sort of promoting things that you would do at home that wasn't really mainstream. So I like that little shout out. I think that was
It was reassuring as well, wasn't it, for young girls, like, to read that and be like, yeah, you know what, just embrace your culture for exactly what it is, because at some point it comes in so handy. Maybe when we were younger we probably weren't so close to it, but now that we're older, I love the culture. I love going to the wedding, and the whole cultural part of the Riyadh Somali is my favorite part of it all. I'm just like, when I hear the English music, well, here we go. And then the minute it becomes really Somali, I'm like, yes, this is the bit I love.
Yeah, and the other thing that she mentioned in that story was like relearning her mother tongue, and like, and that really relates to me as well, because when I don't know about you guys, but when I was young, I'd always cringe and I'd be like, oh, I don't need to know it, and it didn't seem like an important thing for me to do, to like really learn Somali. And I've only realized how important it is being older. And you know, like when Aya Allah Rahma had her stroke and she couldn't communicate properly anymore, it was really hard to properly communicate with her because my Somali was lacking, and she obviously had a speech impediment now, and that really always sticks with me. So that's my biggest regret in life, not taking the time to actually learn Somali better.
You can learn it now, though.
Yeah, no, I can.
As broken as it will be, it does get easier.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
No, we've got to. I think we all got to.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is, which did you like reading but didn't necessarily relate to? So I'm going to go from the nightclub to the A&E. I loved it. I don't know why. I don't know what, but I was just like, oh my God, like, what the hell's going on? Like, she's, but then I like the fact that actually she went through this whole experience. What I couldn't fathom was like, I was like, you went through this whole experience and then you still carried on experimenting with drugs afterwards. I was like,
yeah.
But I really enjoyed reading it. But I was just like, I like the fact that you said, okay, cool, I went through that experience, but it's not going to deter me, but I'm going to learn how to be in charge of it. I think I kind of guess, but still, I was like, why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you playing Russian roulette with your life? But yeah,
it was just drama, wasn't it?
it was.
Could have easily been like a TV show that I know I'd be hooked up to.
Yeah.
No, I was like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? And it's true, it is a bit like playing Russian roulette. You don't know what you're gonna get with it. But it's interesting to see that perspective. It's interesting to see her thought processes. It's so completely different to anything that I would do or would want to do or go back to if I had such an experience, I think. So that I was like, wow.
Yeah, but then I think it's one of them things where it's like having that thing of knowing your limits. So it teaches people, like young people especially, who are going to be reading this, it's like to know your limit, and it's okay to kind of like push the boundaries in a very dangerous way, where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, why would you do that to yourself? But it's good for them to get that different perspective of like somebody who does do it and they are okay with it as well, which I really liked. So, because I think if a young person came up to me and said to me, I'd be like, what are you on about? So you want to go back to the same experience that you've been in before that you could go in again, but for what reason? Do you get what I mean? Where I'll just be like, I think I'll be questioning in such a bad way, where this now, I think I would be like, okay, cool. Go and read that in it and come back to me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Good one.
So yeah, go on, Aish.
I like the one that was about the uncool girl. Really enjoyed it. I think that was the last story. I'm trying to find what it was called. It's literally
called the Uncool Girls Manifesto.
Yeah, and I love the manifesto.
Yeah,
the manifesto is brilliant. Because I don't think I think everyone goes through moments in life where they feel uncool. Now that I'm older, and I don't know about you, Hafsa, like when you're with young girls or the young people, we are like, I mean, I feel ancient compared to them now, and I realize how uncool I am. So the uncool manifesto, I think, was just brilliant for where I'm at in life now, being in front of a class of like 30 kids who are like TikToking and cutting shapes in class, and I'm like, I don't know what you're doing. What is this? Sign language? Is it gang signs? What is it that you're throwing my way? So the Uncool Girl Manifesto was really, really good. I don't think I related to it. I can't say that when I was younger I related to it. There was a lot of like control in there as well, where she had like a strict bedtime, and again, I didn't relate to that. There's different aspects of the story that I really enjoyed, but I was like, I don't see that being like the 14-year-old me. But now that I just love the manifestos. Like, I need to print this out, stick it in my classroom, and be like, yeah, you know, after a lesson when you're like, God, I feel really old now. And you're like, no, we're just not of the same generation, but I'm still cool. I'm still cool. I'm gonna accept that I'm uncool to them, but I'm cool.
It's like the looks that I get in our sessions when I come in and I'm just like, guys, I've got this amazing idea for us to do. They're just like, nah, I don't want to do it. And then the way my heart breaks, I'm just like, but why? It'll be so cool for us to do it. They're like, it seriously won't be cool. And I'm just like, okay, cool, fine. What do you guys want to do? But I think it's one of them things of just like, just realizing. I think for me, where it's just like, yeah, I'm not their age. I'm not hip with the TikToks.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So until you learn how to TikTok, and then all of a sudden you're the coolest teacher in down the corridor, everyone's like high-fiving you. I'm like, wish that was me, but I don't have time to do all of this nonsense.
Oh no, guys, I don't even have TikTok. That's how old I am.
Oh,
I don't either. That's
you
like...
completely go down in their estimations. You need to have a TikTok if you're trying to be cool.
I'm okay. I'm trying to age gracefully here.
Yeah. I think, to be fair, I think I've always been an old soul in a young body.
Yeah. Okay, so the chapter that I did not relate to, but kind of did like, was I Hate You, Learning to Understand My Mum. Now, it was a bit dramatic and I didn't fully understand it because from our, like in our culture, like Jannah, heaven's at your mum's feet, you don't yell at her, you don't tell her you hate her, not if you like your life. And you certainly don't leave evidence of it lying about. Like, I do not know, I can't even imagine how my mum would react if I had a diary like that lying about. But I did really enjoy her journey to understanding her mum and learning to grow closer to her mum, and how she got there. And in a certain way, I think her I don't want to say hatred, because I don't think she actually hated her mum, but it was this kind of fighting her culture, of fighting the thing inside of her that she didn't like because she wanted to associate with whiteness, and then learning to accept that, you know, I might have completely misinterpreted it actually, in which case I apologize, but kind of learning to accept her mother, learning to understand her mother and understand her culture, and to understand that these things aren't mutually exclusive. So yeah. So I quite liked that. I liked how she equated understanding her mum with self-love and kind of accepting herself and accepting her identity, which I'm assuming took quite a bit of time. See, I did enjoy that chapter. I just wish there was more of the journey. Like, how did she go from I hate you to I love you and I want to be like you? It's just...
Yeah, it's a massive jump, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just need more detail. I just need more
You're
detail.
a sucker for description, aren't you?
Yeah, I just need a little bit more detail there. But yeah, so that was a chapter that I absolutely did not relate to, but I did enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to choose the same one for similar reasons, because she obviously had this intense hatred for her mum, and having grown up without a mum, it's not something that I could relate to at all. But I think, like you say, she didn't actually hate her mum. Her mum was probably the only person who was constantly there in her life. The one sort of the closest person to her, so easily the person that she could sort of lash out at, and like that's where she found her mum was basically her punching bag, I think. And that was quite interesting. And I liked the fact that she managed to work her way through all of that, although we obviously don't see how she did all of it, but the fact that she does eventually, and then she her relationship with her mum changes for the better towards the end. That was quite nice. Yeah.
Do you reckon that could be something that, I don't know, young people, like that story would be like a great story?
I think so. And also, I think it's also important for us to remember, like, culturally, that's not something that I could see young Somali girls do when we were young Somali girls. Does that make sense?
They're different now. This generation is different now.
They're way different now. But yeah, I think
savages now. Absolutely.
I'm going to be honest.
Insane.
If in 15 years' time I come across my daughter's diary and it said I think I would cry. I would not be this big person her mum is now, being like, haha, it's okay. I think that would be deeply upsetting.
I guess, no.
Yeah, I think what I think is that we were the last kind of generation, I think, working with young people that had that, where we would, what I say is the switch. So when we were outside, we took that Western culture. We know how to speak properly, what have you. And then as soon as we walk into the house, bam, we switch it on and we have that Somali culture completely. I think we are totally the last generation who was like that.
You don't think you have it now? I'm so far removed from these people.
I'm sorry. I am so sorry, Amal. It does not happen.
I'm so far away from it.
I have with, it's like Somali Girls, and I'm just like, but do you need to understand where your parents are coming from? They're like, no, we don't. And I'm just like,
big clashes.
We do.
Big clashes on what? Big clash. So
for example, for us,
from here, what would, if there was a,
for example, for us, if, like, I can give you an example, like school. When we were all in school, it wasn't a choice. Like, even if you had a tickly throat, you're going to school.
Yeah.
These kids are now saying to their parents, like, I'm not going to school. You can't make me go to school. So we have, I mean, I deal with Somali girls like this, and I'm like, geez, okay. And then it's like that complete disconnect. And it's not just me, it's like other friends that I know that work with Somali girls. And I'm like, what do you mean? They talk to their parents. Like, I would never, ever speak to mum like that.
Somali girls, I think it's probably all teenagers, and it's probably really a cultural clash, maybe.
Yeah.
So maybe we were able to understand that culture more growing up, whereas now perhaps young people feel even more disconnected to sort of that traditional Somali culture.
I think it's because we had to assimilate being younger. We had to adapt to what's happening outside of our houses. Whereas, you know, when the generation that are born here, they're really different to us because...
Wait. Were you guys not born here?
No.
How old were you when you came to the UK?
6 years old.
I was 9 months.
I was
practically
You were practically born here.
Practically
born. I was born in Mogadishu.
But like, I think it's the recent generation, and it's that culture clash because our parents are still really holding on to the culture and trying to like pass it on to the youngest of generations. And I realize, like, even with me and my siblings, it's been diluted from each sibling. So where my big sister's at in terms of like the culture and where I'm at, it's really far apart. And then I look at like my little sister, there's 10 years apart between us, and again it's like a more diluted version of the culture passed on to her. So it's interesting because I know that from with my little sister, she's like, however she behaves outside of this house is the same way she behaves in this house. And as I was saying, like, we learned how to just switch it off when we came into the house and keep that life separate. Not that there was secrecy or anything.
No,
it was more about
is a known thing. Code switching is a thing. I get that.
Yeah.
But I'm just literally, but I just don't understand actually, because there are, like, I was born in Holland. There are girls our age who were born here who are like us. So I'm trying to work out what's different between us and the girls that were born 15 years later. Like, what is the link? It can't be you were born here, you weren't born. It can't be that.
I honestly think so. You know, in our culture, the culture of like shame,
yeah,
that's completely gone. Like, you know, where they can literally shame you. You can't shame the new generation because they're just like, so what? Like, even I love that. I really do love that it doesn't affect them. But the culture of shame was like a cloud over our head. Like, you have to protect your reputation, and we cared about what people thought, and we cared about how that would reflect on our household. With the younger generation, they generally don't care for the community shaming them because they're like, so what? Who are they to me? And they can literally go about their lives.
That's literally the line that they use. who are they to me? And I'm
Yeah.
like, but it's not who they are to you, it's who they are to your parents.
And then there's that disconnect. That's
Yeah.
where that disconnect happens between parents and home. So where like we, you know, that story about, you know, hating your mum, I can't relate to it. I don't think I've ever gone through a point where I hate my mum. My mum is just an like, she's the light of my life. So, but with the younger generation, I know for a fact there are going to be loads that are reading that book going, yep, I see so much of that, of me and my mum's relationship in that. And it's sad, but it is, I feel like since the culture of shaming has left, this is what it's sort of become. I don't know. It's funny because we are really, really different now.
Okay, so going from that, the next question is how important is your culture to you? What does it mean to be British? Can you have a balance of both, or are you forced to choose? Sorry. Dun, 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 dun.
I'm gonna jump in right there and say I'm not British, guys. So I don't identify as British.
Do you identify as Dutch?
No, I don't. I
What
don't
do you
at all. I think I identify as Muslim, and I think I identify as Somali, and I don't. And I think I identify. I definitely identify as Muslim and then Somali, and to a certain extent, I identify as being like part of the diaspora, but I don't identify as British at all. Or
No, I kind of like that. It's kind of
Yeah.
refreshing. Right. What I want to do is, what about you, Shadia?
I think I probably identify myself as British just because being British is all I've ever grown up in, is all I've ever known. But before that, I probably identify myself as Muslim, which I think being Muslim transcends the being Somali. I don't know why, but I think that's probably because we're part of the diaspora, and therefore there's less of a connection with being Somali. But yeah, I think I identify myself as British, like a
British Muslim.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. I think when I was younger, I think I was very adamant to always say, yeah, I'm British first. But as I've grown up, I'm like, yeah, I'm Somali British. Like my Somali comes first before my British. But I love how over the years it's changed. And I don't know whether that's because I found myself falling in love more so with my Somali culture, or I don't even think it's falling in love with my Somali culture. I think it's more being happy with it, so I can be like, yeah, I'm proud to people. Whereas before there was that concept of, no, keep it aside, that's for home kind of thing.
It's what made you different at school, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's sort of like, oh, I don't want to be different. I just want to fit in. So as a child and growing up, you probably try to push it away. But as you grow older, you realize actually, this is actually important to me, and I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to look for it. Which is again going back to the beginning, which is why I probably related so much to that story about the pomegranate, the pomegranate.
Yeah.
I'd say for me, I always said I was, you know, aside from being Somali, aside from being Muslim, I always identified as British as well. And I think that was as soon as you get your passport and you're officially a British citizen, it's like a defining moment. It really is. Everyone remembers when they went to go get their passport, and that's it. Now your nationality is British. You've got that red passport. But I think as I've got older, it's been something that I don't know, I've sort of become to feel disconnected with. And I remember when I first started my teacher training, and they said, so part 2 of when you pass your teacher training, you must abide and reflect British values. And all of it was just human values. There was nothing British about it. It was literally just respect and tolerance for all and all of that. And I was like, that's just human values. And then when society begins to look at you as the other, you realize that actually it doesn't matter if you have a British passport or your nationality is British, and you've lived here since you were 6 years old, and you speak the language well, and you pay your taxes, and you do all of that. Someone will still tell you to go back to your country. Mm-hmm. So I'm at a point now where I'm just like, am I really British? Because I don't feel it. I just have the passport, but I don't feel British, because what does it mean to be British anymore? Because we're sort of living in like really problematic time. I think Brexit was a very defining moment on whether I felt British or not.
You know what's funny? There's a difference between, because we've grown up in England. I probably won't say I feel English for that reason. Whereas British just seems a bit more all-encompassing, and it feels a bit easier to say, oh, yeah, I'm British, but it would be really hard just because for those reasons where you just feel like actually people always think that, no, you're not.
But guys, and this is controversial.
Bring it.
I'm trying to think of a way to say it that sounds less harsh, because I don't mean it to be harsh.
Be harsh. Be harsh.
I associate Britain with colonialism.
What's happened? I can't hear her.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I associate Britain with colonialism.
And I think that's another problem.
When
you learn about the colonialism and the imperialism, you really start to detach yourself away from, am I really British? But once upon a time when we were colonized, like one thing I learned is when British Somaliland existed, our parents who were born during the colonial era and our grandparents were British.
No, you're British subjects.
No, but you qualified as anyone.
Because Somaliland was a protector.
No, but in real terms, that doesn't mean much. But in terms of Mahali Irahda, in terms of what it meant to be a British subject, let's be honest, like we're not Gumayston, like we were colonized, they took our land. Imagine, and so to hear young people say, and so now I'm thinking the code switching you're on about and how close we are to our parents' generation compared to the youngest generation. Now I see you guys as closer to them in a way. Because I would imagine my ancestors would not be happy if I turned around and I walked around and said I was British.
But you know, when you grew up here and you live here,
it's not like, I wouldn't say it's a part of me. It's not all of me.
I get it.
I feel like you can't deny that part of your life.
And it's an identity that's been assigned to you. So even if I wanted to run away from being British, my nationality is, unless I denounce my nationality and not go on holiday, you must be crazy.
Exactly, and that's what that passport is, right? It's a privilege. It's being afforded the privilege to travel.
Yeah.
And that's how I see my nationality. It affords me the privilege to travel. Okay, I don't think I could associate as Dutch or Somali, but I think it's also my growing up experience is very different from you guys. Like I grew up in a hostile white environment, and I came to the UK and it was less hostile. But because I was already switched onto racism, excuse my daughter crying in the background, I could sense the nuance of it.
Yeah.
And so I was always aware of being othered, like, you know.
And I think that's where a lot of people are at now in terms of their British identities, because there's been so much othering that we're just a bit like, well, okay, well, fine. If I'm not British, then I'm not British. Like I'm not offended anymore now. If someone tells me go back to your own country, I'm like, yeah, one day I will. How about that? I will.
Do you think one day you would, Aisha? Honestly,
I definitely would. Yeah, I'm at a point where I'm just like, that's why I say it's quite sad, because you reach a point where you're just like, yeah, you know what? Fine.
Maybe I
pay
will
my ticket. Maybe I will.
Right. Okay. So, to come back onto Gal-Dem, which story is missing, do you think?
Okay. I think Shadia, you should take this one.
I think there was there was a lot of stories about girls just finding their place in the world and fighting all the different elements of their their culture or their religion, whatever. So it was nice to hear all of those different sides, but I just felt like sometimes it fell into that usual narrative where like, oh, a lot of what is in Islam is backwards, and it's not something that you can fully and people find that it was a lot of girls who, for whatever reason, felt that it was restricting. And I feel like that's a narrative that's played out a lot in the sort of mainstream media, that you know, Islam is restrictive and essentially not good. But you know, I feel the opposite, and that's not my lived experiences. I find my faith liberating, and it would be nice to see that story sometimes. So I think that's probably what was missing.
I totally agree with you there. Not to take away from the two young ladies' lived experiences, like they are valid. But I agree, it is a played out narrative, and it would have been nice for Gal-Dem, considering they consider themselves to be inclusive and intersectional, to find to not play into that stereotype. To not play into the stereotype that, you know, Islam is stifling and it's oppressive, because that's exactly what they've done. And once again, yes, that was the case for the two young ladies that wrote. And I'm not saying take those stories out, but it would have been nice to include a story about young people who are happy living as young female Muslims.
Yeah,
it was almost as if they found joy in adulthood rather than in their younger years. And like, for me, I agree completely. Like, it is such, we all know that there are some households are restrictive with their young girls or their young boys, but that's not my story in terms of when it comes to me and my relationship with Islam. And I feel like that was a massive element that was missing. I feel like the Black Muslim woman voice was missing completely, because, you know, growing up, you know, people question, it's not about you have an identity, or, you know, you have a restricted relationship with your religion. It's about people within Islam not accepting you as a Black Muslim and asking you about, so when did you convert, and when did your parents convert, or thinking they know more than you. So for me, it was more like there was that voice that was missing for me. We are, it's like we're really hidden in a way. And I just thought, I don't have a problem with people speaking their truth, but there was also really key stories that were missing, because again, all of us, we have a very different relationship with our religion, but I can speak for myself, where it's like, I can speak about how it's brought me happiness and how it's brought me calm and how it's helped me through a lot of difficulties. And that was the story that was missing. It's never restricted me in any way. It's actually helped me navigate life a lot better.
And the thing that really disappointed me is when Muslim women are portrayed, it's always alongside Muslim men. It's always alongside men, right? So, you know, the hijab's an oppressive tool because brothers, fathers, grandfathers force it upon their, daughters. There's always this invisible Muslim man that like cracks the whip.
You might be here right now.
And then it's always the invisible Muslim man that tells his daughter who she should or should not have a relationship with. And it's like, I would have liked to see a story. Yeah, I would like to see a story about a Black Muslim woman, but I would have also liked to see a story about a Muslim woman that had nothing to do with men. Had nothing to do with her having crushing on a, you know, having, you know, what's a forbidden love.
Yeah.
Like all the Oriental kind of fiction books out there are about Muslim women and forbidden love. I'm sick of it.
It's cringy. It gets so cringy. It's like
cringy.
Muslim women also.
It's cringy.
It's not about being Muslim. Just generally, human beings have crushes on people. It's nothing to do, and it's not forbidden because you're a Muslim. It's just, I found that, like, there's that bit where it says like Edward Cullen was every woman's, like, every Muslim woman's forbidden crush, and I was just like, what? No, he wasn't.
Yeah, no, he was. The boy glittered. Like, I don't know who thought that. It's like he doused himself in highlighter. Like, I don't understand. I didn't
get that. I was just like,
and the girl whose story, once again, not taken away from her lived experience, was about her boyfriend box.
Yeah.
And I was like, are we Muslim women identifying ourselves based on a relationship status? And if that's the case, how sad is that?
Yeah.
How sad is that? How many women are happy and empowered in their singlehood? And that's a story we don't see.
No, it was all tied into relationships.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
But it's always that trauma of, oh my God, I'm wearing a scarf, I need to take it off. Oh, I need to wear it, I need to take it off. And it's just like, and it's,
which is something that does happen, but not everyone goes through that.
Exactly.
And it's like, a lot of, like, for me and a lot of us, we made the choice to wear this, and since making that choice, I honestly feel like it's not a challenge for me to put it on. It really isn't.
It's not even taking it away from the girls, that the fact that they go through that experience. Like, every person goes through, will go through that experience 100%. But don't sell it to me that once you take your scarf off, it's liberating. Because for me, when I'm wearing my scarf, is when I'm most liberated.
Yeah, it's my security.
Oh my God,
really
guys,
my
you've just reminded me.
I feel like this is my security blanket.
It is.
Well, you've just reminded me of these Instagram girls who have saturated the Muslim market.
Can we not go with that? I feel that's a completely different. That's probably
no.
Yeah, we're not going down that road.
That's a whole other discussion.
But like
that's
that
a
has
whole
been
other
on my
discussion.
mind a while, where they've saturated the market, and it's now, once they've made their money, have moved on to another market.
Right.
It's
Okay.
Totally.
Okay,
moving on.
Right. So we've got a couple of questions
rant.
before we wrap up, because I've got one. I want to ask you guys one question at the end. So the first question that we've got is, what one lesson would you impart on your younger self?
On the book,
one,
or just as in we would.
I want you guys to think about that, because that will come to the last question. Okay. So the question I want you guys to answer now is, what story would you like to see told about women of colour / Somali women?
I think we've covered.
I think we've answered that, haven't we?
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the first question, which was, what one lesson would you impart on your younger self? Yeah. What would you tell your teenage self?
Don't care too much about what your peers think. Build on your individualism. So I think personally, and I think this happens a lot in academia as well, like that we do it to young people even when they're in uni. We tell them, we don't want to hear your voice. We want you to build your voice based on the experiences of others. Yeah. We want you to write your essays built on what else is out there in the field. And I think I would have told a young me to try to not lose that individualism, and to try not to lose that voice, because it becomes a lot harder to find it when you're older. And when I say that voice, I mean the Somali Nemo, like the Somali Nemo. Like, hold on to your Somali Nemo as much as you can, because once you've lost that, you can't get it back.
Yeah. Shadia, do you want to go next?
It's similar. I'd say just embrace your differences. So, these are the things that make you unique. So just go with it, really. And part of that is embracing your culture. So yeah.
Aish, go.
I would tell my younger self that it's okay to cut people off, because you almost, like, you're really defined by who you're friends with, and some of those friendships were not for you. Like, I look back now and I realize and notice that there was a lot of one-sided friendships, and it's exhausting. So yeah, cutting off people and not feel guilty. Like, don't actually get rid of that guilt, because you have recognizing that you've outgrown people is normal. So I would say to my younger self, like, make those cuts early. Yeah.
I think I would say to myself, be selfish, in the sense where don't only do what your friends or your peers or what people think you should be doing. Be selfish in the sense of, you do what makes you happy, and say what makes you happy. So even if you feel like it's a bit cutthroat, then be that cutthroat, because at the end of the day, you're speaking your truth. And I think that's what's most important, and what will make you happy in the long run. So yeah.
That's a nice one. Oh, sweet. Be selfish. I think we can do that now as well.
Yeah, 100. I think everything that we've just mentioned is not only to your younger self, but to yourself now, for when you are 50 or 60. Do you get what I mean? So in a sense where, look around and see your circle of friends, and see if there's relationships or people they do the cut, or in the sense where, be selfish and say what you need to be said.
And in light of, we've all lost loved ones the older we've gotten. With COVID, we've lost more loved ones. So love unconditionally and love on people, because no one's going to be around forever. I think that's a really important one.
Yeah.
Don't take people for granted.
Yeah, so embrace the people around you and who you are.
And I'm here talking about cut people off. And you're like, embrace people.
No, embrace people. And then I think also
people who you love and people who love you back.
Yeah.
If you feel that person does not love you and is not
Yeah.
there for you, then there's no.
I think you start as you get older, you start to see who's really in your corner.
Yeah.
And you really see the value of family, and having that kinship. And that's that. I think that's been something that, you know, when you're younger, you don't really embrace so much. Like, you see your siblings walking down the corridor, and you're like, you just give each other that nod.
But also, you don't appreciate the people who become family. You know, like we're not related, but we could be. Like we're an adopted.
Except for
family.
these two.
Like yeah, you two are related, but you know what I mean. Like the aunties and the uncles. And like. We have a really amazing extended family, and I think it's important to appreciate that.
It's like that Somali saying where there's a night between us to describe how you are related to people. So they might not be close like your instant family, but what they say is there's a night between us. So in a sense where that's how close you are. It's only a night away.
I think that's a really nice. I think that's a nice.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to end it as well, isn't it? Yeah. Should we wrap up?
Remember, love is always bigger than hate, no matter what the newspapers in the world says.
Right, so we'll wrap it up here, shall we? So this is just to anyone who's still watching and like went through this hilarious little conversation with us. So we've got two things to just say. Just follow us on the Lit Collective. So this is part of the Lit Collective with the University of Sheffield as well. So follow us on @Lit Sheffield, both on Twitter and on Instagram. And then this is the end of day one of the Lit Fest, the first ever Lit Fest online festival. And then obviously tomorrow, the first event is at between 6 and 7 p.m. Will also be on YouTube. And that's with Dr. Mariam Jamila. I'm literally reading it on my phone. Sahaima Mansour Khan, and they're going to talk about the importance of imagination and futurity. I'm really excited to just find out what any of this means.
Yeah.
I learned the word futurity. That'll be on YouTube
as well. Like, she is amazing.
Oh, I am excited. I mean, Amal, if you believe she's amazing, then I for sure believe that, because you are the critical queen of this. So then between 8 and 9:30, we have Celebrating Women Writers of Colour, and that's an open mic night strictly for women of colour, and it'll be on a Zoom chat, not on YouTube, so you'll need to check the website out for that. And then Saturday 25th, 2 to 3:30, you've got The Power of Joy with Denai Wellington. So it's a creative writing workshop. Got on there for Eventbrite. 4 to 5, Home and Britain by Mabina Waheed, Anika Majid, and Loma Jones. And that'll be on YouTube. And then we've got two more, 6 to 7, Reimagining Black Feminism, Feminist Futures with Amber Lascelles, Amina Jam, and Desiree Reynolds. That's a great one, again on YouTube. And the final one to wrap it up, we've got An Evening with Yvonne Battle Felton. That, I believe, will be on, there's an Eventbrite, and I think that might end up on YouTube?
Zoom.
Yeah, so that's a really good one to sign up to, actually, because she's published as well, and she's award-winning. Get with it. Really, really get with it. Yeah, make sure you subscribe below as well. I've always wanted to do that, so I'm going to do that. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Amal and Shadia for joining us.
More of this for next time. I feel like these two are like dark horses. It's been interesting discussing with them as opposed to the young girls, because I feel like I felt really challenged in this one. This is brilliant. This is exactly what a book club should be.
No, I did. It was good to see the difference between this one and then the young girls as well. Whereas the young girls enjoyed it, but then also had the time to. It got them thinking as well, which I really loved, and got them to think about what their culture means to them, and how they can embrace their own culture and be happy with it as kind of thing as well. So yeah, it's kind of good to.
I think disclaimer. I'm really far removed from being a teenage girl. So
we all are.
I think it's
we all are, don't we?
Know that I am not the target audience, and it gets the job done. Like what it sets out to do.
That's nice.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I really did enjoy the fact that the girls have read it, and just to say as well that the girls read this book and a lot of them hadn't been reading for ages, so for them to pick up a book that is fiction and to relate to it and really enjoy it was really good for me. So yeah.
Before we go, hashtag TLC Sheffield 20, get involved in the conversation. We're gonna be on there. Look at her. I knew someone was gonna do it. Join us.
Cool. I told you I was uncool.
And at Lit Sheffield. Lovely. Right, Hafsa, end it there for us, please.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having us.